So let's have a bit of a yak about rebellion. Okay, rebellion as it relates to um uh, hierarchies and the symbolism of hierarchies and rebellion that's found in Western esoteric traditions and religions from there in Mesopotamia. Okay, so the basic rundown is that if you're not from an English-speaking society or a European society, with society with European influences, which is okay, it's basically everyone's is these days. So to the colonial period, but anyway, um, their idea of how the world works is that there was levels, like like so, and there's a bottom floor and a top floor, and there's floors in the middle. And you can sort of imagine um, those levels having um, different degrees of authority and also different roles. So the top level, the upmost level is the creator. So in monotheistic tradition, the upmost top level is the creator, is the boss, is God. And at the utmost bottomest level is the devil, or the antithesis or adversary of the God. Um, the middle section of levels is also known as the earth levels. So all this stuff is considered usually to be the midpoint between those two worlds. And they are um the place where the battle between the top levels and the bottom levels takes place. The light and the dark, the good and the evil, the God and the devil. Okay, that battle. Earth is actually the battleground. So, in their stories, okay, when you line it up, okay, and so they line up and say, okay, are you working for Team God? Are you working for Team Devil? And then they have these different traditions that say that team is Team Devil and that team is Team God, and so on and so forth. And other traditions which say that, well, actually, you live in the midpoint called Earth, therefore you are halfway between God and Devil, so you are going to sort of be both and neither. You don't, and obviously here the upper level of the heavens or the lowest level of the hells are both the ones determining how reality works for you. Then you basically are stuck, just accommodating whatever circumstances you're in. So there's different ways, lots of different ways of looking at that. So one of the traditions that appears to have come about in the late 1800s through Blatsky and Associates is a rehash of that basic idea. And what they seem to have done is they seem to have done yet another sort of false patterning thing, which is the association of a planet as a sphere. So there's a planetary spheres, and then there's the planet as a sphere. And so the lower eighth sphere seems to refer to a hell realm. It also turns out that the eighth planet used to be called Pluto. And Pluto, of course, is one in the Western languages. Pluto and Hades refer to the same mythological character in ancient Greece and Rome, respectively. And that's another word for hell. Okay, or the bad realm. So, in other words, the lower eighth sphere is hell. Okay, or Pluto. Shortly after that, in the early 1900s, a man named Aleister Crowley said that okay, you do a map of the tree of life and the tree of death, which and with Malkuth at the middle, which is basically if you look at it that way, that's another drawing up of those levels Okay, and he said he got the map of the Sephirot, or the spheres, from the Jewish mystical tradition. And although the Jewish mystical tradition does have a Sephirot and a tree of life, and there is a complex interplay of how they use their language symbolically or something like that, in terms of numbers and gematrias, it isn't necessarily the case that Crowley and associates were doing it the Jewish way. They also had astrology in it, which is divination, which is against the law of Moses if you read the Bible. So it was a bit confusing. They didn't have 8 spheres there. They had 10 on each tree. So all up, they had 20 spheres. Okay, this is on the Crowley one. Yeah, and on the Crowley one, the uppermost sphere, or Sephirot, is called Kether, and that, according to Crowley, was the place of Pluto or Hades. Okay, in other words, the uppermost level was hell, and so you had to pass through Kether to get to the Iron Self and the Iron Self and the Iron Self ore, and then the ore or whatever. Like, so, in other words, the infinite dimensionless light, the sort of the eventually, basically, the point is the highest of high levels is basically sunyata, or void consciousness, a place called void, sunyata. Okay, but then there's the big lights, and stuff like that. So in some respect, Kether by Crowley was treated like the breach or the chasm. Okay, so with the post 1970s experiences that some people have of the post orb world, ORB world, in the post self world, you have a situation where you might have visions of these likeness of a man aliens, which are similar to Therian class aliens, but they're humanoid, and they're not tall whites, and they're not Pleiadians either, but they're sort of not quite, and they're called the gods of the simulation, associated with the Great Hexagram, and they're the ones that and so they try and say that I don't want to try and say, but they associate a vision of them sort of potentially precedes visions of or experiences of other beings, perhaps, other beings analyzing what that might mean. And so what it might mean is like the orb vision of in a nibbonic state of the great colourful fractal. So in a nibbonic state of that type, a person crosses a rainbow bridge, and when in herself, of course, and sees a big orb of light, and it's an amazing orb of light, and they cross into the light very, very fast, and have this amazing, intense experience, lasts a few hours, of just traversing this fractal of colour, and these tiny little light balls in it, like mini orbs inside it. That is just the most perfect fractal you've ever seen of colour. Like, it's everything is arranged perfectly. The supreme order, an absolute beauty to behold. Like, it's beautiful. And then they go, right to the exact centre of that orb, which is infinity. And in infinity, they encounter an underworld, and then they encounter different things there. They do a particular task. If they've been assigned an Isis-like story, they'll say like Isis and Osiris. Then if in that case the woman is the traveller that goes to the underworld, and then she rescues the shadow body of a man, and then they travel together, as spirits. But what she does is she acts as a leader, and then after 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 that, like in that place, in that normal place, there's um um a vision of the breach, which is like a so like inside the orb, it appears as a sort of dark ring on the edge of the great light of the outer shell of the orb. Um, and it's called the chasm, the abyss, or the breach, and they have the option to either to cross the breach, the chasm, the abyss manually, just like walk through it, um, or just hop. And so it takes a few days, and the hop happens. Okay, straight into the Ein Sof, the infinite light. Straight. It looks like an infinite chasm of darkness, and behind it is an infinite chasm of light. But it's going. There is no space and time. Yeah, bang, and you're straight in the light. Yeah. So all that looks like it's uncannily true. Like it's because it's really in line with a lot of the symbolism that comes with the English-speaking language. So here later on, what's in the second degree, as it were, which isn't really the second degree at all. But some people associate it with that. Could be similar. The second degree in the collective phase. So yeah, that's the bardic state. There is the final degree in the singular self phase, and then later on, might be, and it is forced to have the second degree in the collectivist phase, which is sometimes known as the collective root chakra. Now, once you're at the collective root chakra, okay, you get to you're in Pluto, you're in hell, because that's where all the shit is. Okay, and it's not your shit, it's their shit, it's collective shit. So you watch them flinging shit on each other. So self goes and then other shows up, right? Not plural. Others always plural, not singular. There's that. So the symbolism that and what these lifeless of man aliens have done in accordance with that particular story, is that they've trapped people with a simulated reality, using the symbolism of the orbs, the symbolism of black holes as well comes into it, the symbolism of the Rainbow Bridge, and so on and so forth. And so there's this impression that the objective is to try at the root level is to try and have beings, no matter which ones they are, feel as though that they're constantly being worked on, and that their lack of support for hierarchy, or they even asking questions in some cases, is the root cause of their suffering. So unless they provide complete obedience to the upper order, then they are relegated to suffering. So it's showing it. The experiences show that what they call divine punishment, okay, is something that only happens to the victims of crime. It's a cover story for a hermetic manipulation, or technological manipulation of different people's heads and whatever contents might be there by putting stuff in and out of Tesseract boxes and whatever else to produce particular behavioural and ideological outcomes. And it's not a case of punishment at all. So they've created this shame program because this idea of karma being associated with punishment when it's not. In the original Sanskrit, it's action versus reaction. But the Western notion of divine punishment, they try and play that out. You'll get punished if you don't support the creator, etc., etc. Okay, you're not the creator. No matter how high you flew, it will prove you're not the creator. See, this is how. The only way you can be the creator is if you join what the team that we've decided is the bad guys. In the case of 21st century language, they start bringing up conspiracy theories like the cabal. You won't join the cabal, then get punished by the cabal. The idea is the idea of getting punished for not wanting to join one of their factions. So if you had the audacity to say that the idea of there even being a tree of life or tree of death as being anything other than a map. So it's not the real terrain of how spirituality works. It's not the real terrain of reality. It's just a map. And it wouldn't matter how many little warby things were on it, like or spheres. It could be 12 of them. It could be 2 of them, whatever. But it's not the point. The point is it is made up by people. It's a map. And so if you had the audacity to say that to any of those groups, the upper groups or the lower groups in that system, that it's just a map, that it doesn't actually mean what you think it means, that maps can be interpreted, that maps can be reinterpreted, then they seem to get a bit touchy about it. The problem as well is that it's also when you're talking about with the lower 8th sphere, okay, the people that get taken to the lower 8th sphere, okay, are sometimes people who've done nothing wrong at all. They're actually sometimes very decent people, and when you talk about that, you also talk about a collective space. They start encountering beings and people and entities and whatever else that are not in their best interest, that they don't deserve it, or that they certainly are not, and are not their dreaming at all. And unfortunately, in that place, you start to encounter things like Nazis saying bad things to Jews, or people using the N-word, and so on and so forth. You also encounter where dictators actually live, and this is the whole irony of it, because that system was encoded socially to say that the God character is the holy one, the good one, the caring one, and so on and so forth. It sort of means like the good one lives in hell, but they say hell is in heaven. So what you start going through the language of what's going on, you can almost see that even though Crowley's done the wrong thing by coding it as Pluto, which basically means when you get to Kether, you get to of the tree of life, you get to Satan and the tree of death. You can almost forgive him for doing that, because it does actually say in the Bible that the devil is the god of this world. So if you get to that version of the top, then you go back to the bottom again. So it becomes that sort of system is sort of like there's a lot of language that it makes it as sort of like in English about esoteric concepts like that it makes it a sort of that creates a closed loop system where people have been trapped by the English language. So someone comes along and says, basically what he's done on his map there is he said Malkuth is a man's arsehole. Women don't exist in the tree of life or death at all. And the only place that you said a woman can exist is Lilith, and that she's a demon that kills babies. That doesn't sound like it's a very feminist proposition. Sorry, but that particular religion or cult sounds like it hates women. Okay, the only time women can exist is if she's a demon that kills babies and lives inside a man's arsehole. Yeah, this is unacceptable. This is not acceptable. This is not an acceptable way to see women, and it's not an acceptable way to see a man's butt either. Okay, but certainly not an acceptable way to see women. Okay, so the sort of language of disrespect that's encoded in that is quite pronounced. And if you start looking, you see that you see in the Bible as well. There's a lot of disrespect as well towards women. So, what are things that might happen to someone is that after the dividing state, what are the people that gets lifted up in the underworld in the Isis space is coded Osiris, but Osiris is one of the two witnesses. And another character from the underworld, male character from the underworld, is the other male witness. So they wind up with two witnesses, to testify for them in court, which is biblical. So in the Bible it says a woman is not allowed to testify in court. She requires two male witnesses to speak on her behalf. And as a consequence of that passage, women in English-speaking societies, okay, which included Australia, as a consequence of, at that point in time, being associated with the British common law court system, meant until 1873, women were not allowed to testify in court and required two male witnesses for biblical reasons. So there is a very strong silencing of women's voices in that system. And so what that sort of Western esotericism, whether it comes in the form of Crowleyism or it comes in the form of true life, true death, so it might be Wicca, could be Masonry, Theosophy, Christianity proper, basically anything that's a derivative of the Bible or whatever, is in the post blue grid misprogrammed society, been encoded with the false alien hierarchies of the 1970s. So from there you get likeness of a man, aliens, okay, as opposed to just likeness of a man. There was a being with the likeness of a man. That phrase appears quite a fair few times in the Bible. You read it. There was a being with the likeness of a man who was from God's holy host in heaven. Up there, right? Okay, so you can see where your Sitchkins and your Bondanicans got the idea from. However, that doesn't necessarily follow that they were talking about the same thing. Okay, 2,000 years ago, as opposed to say 1970 something. And so the sort of so-called simulation overlay, which is a sort of like a collective mind's a byproduct to create a thing called Great Hexagram collective likeness of a man simulation overlay, whereby that alien society in question, that has the likeness of a man, has 6 male individuals, which are positioned in the hexagram shape, and their job is to control the simulation or the dreaming of a particular vantage point. And once that vantage point loses itself and becomes other and collectivized, might come to a point where they witness the ceiling of the simulation and they'll see the 6 likeness of men, aliens. And the one that was the main guide is usually the one that gets attacked. It's also the one that sold everyone out as well, in that system, but is a lesser threat than the greater system. They're usually a pleb, by the sounds of it, and that man, well, at that point, after having experienced a bunch of other stuff, go, don't want to work for you guys, you're all vampires. And then, bam, they get punished. Yeah. Okay? So the yeah, so it was like rough going before, but I go, okay, go meet him. Sick of you guys, so I can see what you're doing. You're a bunch of vampires. You like us to meet aliens, actually vampires. Don't want anything to do with you. Bam, you get punished. So the so some people reckon on that basis that God's holy hosts, right? God's holy hosts are likeness of a man and aliens running because it's called the alien simulation hypothesis. Okay, and that the actual description of how the simulation is structured was put together by a man named Crowley. Okay, he's the guy that documented it supposedly. So when you see Elon Musk talking about the that he's an alien from outer space, or he reckons the world's a simulation and it's a big computer game. You can see him running around acting like he's fucking playing a computer game, like he's in The Sims. Oh, he's in The Sims. He can do what he wants. It's beyond a joke. There's no surprise the incels took over the USA with a guy like that fucking behind the helm. As one of the powers behind the thrones, if that makes any sense. That fucking, because, fucking, and that country's got a history of going back fucking good 20 years now of guys who, fucking incels fucking getting out their BFGs and shooting the aliens. Those hot alien bitches that wouldn't fuck James Tiberius Kirk. Yeah. That's pretty sad, isn't it? And so, suffice to say, if you don't want anything to do with a Western esotericism, and it's Western esoterrorism, okay, you don't want to do anything to do with Christianity, because Christianity is actually this is what's really sad about it. If you actually analyze it, it's actually not that different. Like if you go and just put it into perspective, there was no aliens or computers back then. Yeah, right, okay, okay, right, okay. It's like okay. It's the alien computer version of Christianity. Okay. With a few mythological stories woven in from the medieval period and whatever else. Okay, so not necessarily 400 AD level or whatever. Yeah. So sort of getting out of that system is difficult. Okay. Going into that system is never voluntary. One of the tricks that they've been pulling since Blavatsky is this overlap between the different cults. So they've made conflations, say, between Buddhism and Hinduism and Christianity, for example, with their Asuras versus Devas stuff. The role of Asuras and Devas in Hinduism is quite different from angels and demons in Christianity to start off with. It's not necessarily the same as the caste system either. But those type of conflations have occurred culturally as a consequence of Blavatsky's influence. So we're inclined to say that Blavatsky was a very bad person. We're inclined to say that Blavatsky was a very bad person, and Crowley was influenced by Blavatsky. We're inclined to say that it is more than a coincidence that there's some similarities between what Hitler was doing and his guys were doing, and that. We're inclined to say that the reason why in the sort of post 1970 stuff they talk about how the Nordic aliens are the good guys trying to save you, like Ashtar or whatever, but it seems like the other root races in their system aren't really human. Okay, that's extremely racist. So it sounds like whatever that biblical stuff was, even if it did refer to aliens from the outset. Okay, so let's just for 1 second say that Botanical Christian or whatever his name wasn't completely insane, which by the way is the null hypothesis. Okay, yeah, it's the default setting. But let's say it wasn't for a second. The way that people in say 1300 AD would have interpreted those experiences would have been drastically different from people in the 21st century who know what a fucking computer is, or know about a spaceship or something like that. So there's different ways of looking at that. So what needs to happen here is we need to take out the language. Okay, so we're going to replace Malkuth. Okay, Malkuth is antlier. Okay, we're gonna. Sorry, you might not know what antlier means. It's a term that an old man once described for what's called Sheol, or the place of transitions. So Malkuth is basically roughly the equivalent of Sheol. Okay, so Sheol, you'd expect to be Pluto or Hades, but it's not. It's actually Malkuth. Okay, because that's where the transitions between the upper and the lower realms is occurring, is in Malkuth. Yeah, yes, yeah. Okay, yeah, okay. Which means the place of the transition of spirits is a man's arsehole, right? Yeah, okay. Not a woman's vagina or arsehole, but a man's arsehole. Yeah, and a collective arsehole of men. So inside the arseholes of men, in the male root chakra system, okay, you will find Sheol. Okay, so if you want to know where hell is, okay, you want to know where hell is, or more specifically the place of transitions, which exists, with a waiting room type of thing, Sheol type waiting room thing, in addition to hell, being a different realm, sub-realm, okay, that is in fact a man's butt, and more than one, but every man's butt. Okay, okay. What they're saying there is a man's arsehole is hell. A man's arsehole is where all the spirits pass through. A man's arsehole is hell. But if you this is going to be confusing, because then you go, a man's arsehole is where poo comes out. I've been getting real. So if it's a place of transitions, a spirit goes from one place to another, then does the spirit go from the man's mouth to the man's arsehole? Or does he go southbound and goes from his arsehole to his mouth? Like, which one's which? Is spirituality for men a consumptive exercise? And then you start going, okay, can see why that guy would go, the likelihood of men aliens that are the great hexagram are vampires. So yeah, and so it's not the women that are vampires, it's the men in their buttholes. Okay, so that system, that Western esoteric system, okay, and which is using direct references from the Bible to do it, by the way, not just other mystical traditions, which are non-Christian, is basically saying that a man's role is consumptive, processing, transitory, entirely dedicated to his anus, and women are the demons that he shits out. Like, women are source of all problems. Okay. So we're going to have to reverse all of that. We're gonna have to say that we're gonna have to say that a man's role. You see, are you seeing maybe the role of the ascetic in this one? The ascetic man is the man who doesn't want to be consumptive. He doesn't want to be sexist and stuff like that. Okay, so we're getting real complex situation here, because even, not to say that the male ascetic was invented as a consequence of that system, okay, he might have been existed for another reason. Okay, that system is a overlay. It's a map. It's not the trade. It's a map. Okay, remember, it's a map, not the trade. Okay, it's Baudelarium. It's a map. It's a spectacle. So a man is not consumptive. A man is not consumptive. He doesn't exist to consume. Okay, a man's power does not come from his asshole, because you say his asshole and his crown is the same thing, and it's the same thing as the devil. Then you're saying all men are assholes, and they're full of shit. It's the women's shit, but they're full of it. Okay, no, a man's power is not in his asshole or in his head. A man's power is in his attitude, because your attitude is your power. No matter who you are, male or female, or otherwise, your male power is not a divine authority where you get to sit on a throne or someone else's throne and steal from people and lie and turn United States of America into Kekistan. Okay, which is what Donald Trump's done. Elon Musk has done. They've turned the United States of America into actual fucking Kekistan. Okay, which is outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous, and they've done it with Donald Trump as a KGB spy going back to the 1980s or something. It was absolutely ludicrous situation. So we'll say something like Kek is a meme and memes cannot consume. Kek is a meme and memes cannot consume. Memes are not demonic. Memes are neutral. Memes are neutral and of the clear light. They cannot consume. They cannot fight. They cannot tell you wrong from right. They're just ideas floating around. That's all a meme is. An idea floating around. It is without power. It is without merit. It is without authority. A meme cannot be a vampire. A meme cannot be a thief. And a meme is a demon only linguistically that you will find in Malkuth. Remember, there are no girls on the internet. That has always been the truth.